What is up, everybody? Good evening. Good evening.
Hey everyone, how are you?
There's Joe Jack. I see Joe Jackalone is in the chat. And Joe, by the way, folks, Joe Jackalone said, I met someone at CrimeCon who I think would be an amazing guest for the show. And who was it? Jerri Williams. So thank you, Joe, for reaching out. But guess what? We were just talking to her, and she knew about us before Joe because she heard our podcast on The Investigator. So that was kind of really cool way to kind of, when we asked her, she had knew about us already. Um, but we are super. Are you excited, babe? I'm so excited to talk to Jerri.
Yeah, I mean, how can you not be? She has a resume like a million pages long and it's all cool, just absolutely really cool stuff. So,
And I mean, I was just telling Jerri, we were just watching a case where the FBI was involved,
yep,
and they were wiretapping. There were agents out there.
doing a bump.
They were doing a bump, which they have video of. They're in the van, like the whole FBI deal. But is that the real deal? I mean, obviously it is because it happened, but a lot of stuff we see on TV sometimes isn't the real deal. And Jerri's out here trying to get rid of some of those misconceptions. So let me just give a brief bio before we bring Jerri on. She served 26 years as a special agent with the FBI. During most of her career, she worked the major economic fraud investigations. And in addition to that, she is an author. She has two crime novels, Pay to Play and Greedy Givers. And she also has this book, folks, which we will be giving out later in the show, right here, which is signed. I always do the worst job at showing this. Signed, folks. You can win today a signed copy of this book from Jerri Williams, and it is FBI Myths and Misconceptions, Debunking Cliches for Those Who Read, Watch, and Write crime dramas about the FBI or have always wanted to be a special agent. In addition to that, folks, that's not it, folks.
Love this part.
She,
Mhm,
A
what the,
manual for the armchair detective.
and that's you, babe.
Like
You're the
all
arm.
of us here.
That's you, babe. You're the arm.
I know.
Additionally, folks, she hosts and produces FBI Retired Case File Review podcast, folks. She just had her 300th episode. And on the episode, she had FBI Director Christopher Wray. I mean, talk about a woman who rocks. So without further ado, Jerri Williams.
Hello, hello, hello.
Hey,
How are
Jerri.
you?
We're good.
Thank
How
you
are
for being
you?
on with us.
I'm great. Nice to be here, Jay and Shannon. This is going to be fun. I can
We're
I
gonna.
can feel it.
Yeah, it is. And by the way, speaking of fun, guys, throw up if you're on the kick machine. Throw up. We got the Jerri has a bobblehead. There it is. Throw up the emojis. Let's throw them all up really quick, so we can show Jerri. We do this for our special guests. There they
Isn't
are.
that? Oh, there they are, little Jerry's
There's
floating around.
it's
He's
little
floating
Jerri.
around in space now.
The real little Jerry is back there. Can you see her?
Yeah,
I
right
don't
between
know.
the books.
Yes.
Yes, I can.
Yeah, on the second shelf.
Yep.
But go ahead, babe.
Well, I asked this question first because it's one of my favorite questions to ask all of my guests. What were you like as a little girl?
Whew. I was that's a good question. I was a lot of fun because I grew up as an Air Force brat. And so we moved. I never lived anywhere until I got to college, more than 3 years. We always were on the move. And we were living in France and Germany and England, Maine, Massachusetts, Washington State. I mean, we were all over. And so I had to be a very fun and assertive little girl in order to go to these new places and be able to make friends right away. Because, you know, most people, when they grow up, they are hanging around the same people that they might have gone to kindergarten with. And so I didn't have that. I was always making friends. And even if we lived in a particular country or state for 3 years, that didn't mean that we lived in the same area. I may have gone to a different school, while we were there that 3 years. So it was constantly moving, constantly going to new places and making new friends. And so I think that is how I develop my personality, kind of get along with everyone, not because I'm a people pleaser or I mold myself to fit that person. I just developed a personality where I'm not judgmental and I can accept people. And therefore, I even got along with the people that I investigated. This is me.
Uh, we got Lauren Lee Malloy, Pryor woman who rocks, who says, "I'm here, and Jerry Williams is my hero." So thanks for being here,
Oh, hi,
Lauren.
Lauren. Thank you.
So talk about, so got into the FBI. What made you want to become an FBI agent?
I would love to give you a very, heroic answer, but I'm going to be real. And it was money. I was working as a juvenile probation officer in Newport News, Virginia. This was over 40 years ago. I'm old, 1982. I was making $14,000 a year at this quasi law enforcement position. And I saw a newsletter that said that the FBI was looking for women and minority. And I went check, check. And then it said that the starting salary was 28,000 a year. So I knew that I would double my salary. So even though it was something I never ever thought about, my interest was piqued when I saw the dollar signs. Now, of course, I learned more about the FBI. I learned about their mission and what they did, and then became truly interested in it as a job. But yeah, initially, doubling the salary wasn't bad.
That's pretty funny because we had Karen Smith on, Prior Woman Who Rocks, and she was working a bunch of jobs, and then she ended up working for the police department because I think, did she say, was it the pension, babe, or was it? I forget what
Yeah,
she
she
said,
said
but
the pension.
yeah,
Yeah, because she was like hosting a radio show. So she was like, I wasn't getting any benefits. And
Right.
so immediately I was like, pension? Yes.
Yeah, yeah. And the pension is not bad either. They changed it, later after I joined, but the pension that I came in under is a really amazing, really, really good pension. So, yay, federal pension.
go ahead, babe.
Um, During your time, you were an agent for quite a while. So this question can encompass quite a bit, but what are some memorable cases that you handled that stick out in your mind?
All right, so I spent most of my career working white collar crime. Uh, Economic crime, fraud cases like advance fee schemes, Ponzi schemes, embezzlements, business to business telemarketing fraud. But really, one of the cases that sticks out the most is one that had nothing to do with that. It was actually two subjects that I was investigating for the business to business telemarketing fraud. And when they came in for a proffer, and for those who don't know what a proffer it is when subjects will come in to law enforcement and provide information about the crimes that they did. And as long as they don't lie, what they're telling the investigators will not be held against them. And so it allows us to, cut through all the red tape and not play any games and just go ahead and, finish up the investigation. We've already, at that point, charged them. So it's just kind of tying all the loose knots. When they came in, their attorney said, are you going to tell the agent about the gunshot? And I'm thinking, gunshot? And I find out from them that their business was starting to fail and they had borrowed money from a loan shark. And at some point, when they weren't able to pay, the loan shark and his body guy came in and actually fired a bullet right behind one of the brothers' ears, into the wall behind his desk. And so while I am investigating them for business to business telemarketing, they are actual victims, loan shark victims. And my first thought was, oh, this is something that I don't investigate. This is something that I'm going to refer to another squad. And at the time, the brothers thought that the people was Frank D'Amelio. It was D'Amelio, D'Souza, and D'Elia. And, those were names that the brothers thought were part of the Italian mob in Philadelphia, which of course is, very, very famous. So I went over to the organized crime, the Italian organized crime squad, and, told them about this and, wanted to pass this part of the investigation on because that's not what I do. I do white collar crime. And they were busy. These guys were hanger honors. They were associates. They were not made members. And so I became responsible for investigating this aspect of the case, this offshoot of the case myself. It was so much fun. I mean, I was wiring up people. When they met with these uh, not made guy mobster. They were still mobsters. They made them strip search in the bathroom, and I'm listening to all of this. I'm doing consensual monitoring. I'm doing wiretapping. I'm doing things that I might have already done in my white collar crime cases, but not at this level. And it's just really exciting. I had the ERT, the evidence response team, go and get the bullet slug out of the wall in their office to verify, and then after we've gathered all the information, we're in their own words. We have these mobsters threatening my subjects on tape. I have them in their own words saying that they're going to kill them or hurt them if they don't pay up this loan. Then we do searches and arrest, and we go to trial, and they get over 20 years because what they've done with the use of a firearms, and one of them actually was a felon, and so he got additional time. But it was so exciting to see my name in the paper as the affiant on the search and arrest warrants in a loan shark, investigation. So that's a highlight for me because it was something that I never thought I would, have as part of my career in white collar. And I actually had the brothers come on my podcast so that we could all talk about that case. So that was really fun. I'm going to tell you now because I wrote it down. Didn't I write it
Yes.
down? Yeah, it's episode 244. So it was we broke down and reviewed that loan shark case. So it was a lot of fun.
That is so freaking cool, guys. By the way, we're putting the link in for Jerri's website, which has all her links. It has the podcast, the books. She has Buy Me a Coffee, folks. If you want to buy her a coffee, so make sure you're checking that out. And that is such a cool story. And you could listen to the podcast where she talks to the brothers. I mean, how cool is that? Do you think the rest of the mob is like, these jabronis are out here and a loan shark, and now I got Jerri Williams on us. We got wiretaps because they're shooting a bullet behind a wall. Like, could you just not have shot if you just didn't shoot that wall? This probably would never would have
That's so true. And what's so funny is that the brothers were kind of relieved when they found out they were under investigation because the first thing they did was to go to these mobsters and say, "Hey, look, the FBI." Is now on us. They just did a search. They've shut down our business. Now we really can't pay. And do you know those guys still continue to threaten them, even though they had told them that they were under investigation by the FBI?
Wow.
So,
So let me ask you this:
just made my day in allowing me to expand my the type of things that I got to do in the FBI.
Well, that's such a cool story. Now, let me ask this: did you have to testify in that case, or can you tell about like how many times would you say you have testified on other cases before, and what's that like for you?
Yeah, many times because not only would I testify in my own cases, but as an agent, even though I work white collar cases, when you're in the FBI, when they need a body, you could be called to do anything. And so I've testified on drug cases, I've testified on corruption cases. If anybody needed me, and a lot of times maybe because I was a black female, there's only 1% of the agents in the FBI are Black females. And there may be a situation where just looking at what the interview is and trying to get the best information possible and finding a way to get that out of a particular witness, they may have come to me saying, hey, can you conduct the interview, or can you go along with the case agent as they conduct the interview, making the subject or the victim or the witness a little bit more comfortable. And so on those cases, if I was involved, then I might have had to testify on that too. So I've testified a lot in court, and it is always exciting. I mean, you can't, being on the stand and not knowing the questions that, you may know what the prosecutor is going to say because you're on the prosecutive team, but you have no idea what the defense attorney is going to say. And so, you're ready. You've got to be ready. You got to know, what might be coming and being prepared. And one of the things that you always do is think of the questions that you don't want to be asked, and be prepared to answer those. And so that was always a lot of fun. And I do think I was pretty good at testifying, and being comfortable on the stand, and comfortable and confident in my investigation and what I was prepared to testify about. You can't beat a trial.
Awesome. Babe, before you go, I just want to highlight this comment. Mon Ben says, "Oh my God, I love her podcast. She is so insightful and intelligent." So that's a awesome comment.
Thank you.
Go ahead.
That one of the things that I think I do well on the podcast is I treat my interviews the same way that I would when I was interviewing a subject or a witness, which is you ask the question and then shut the hell up. I don't interrupt a lot. I don't um, try to tell my story or give an anecdote. I just say, where do you want to start? And I let that, FBI agent go through her case or his case and just tell it like it is. Now, I will interrupt to ask pertinent questions if I think something needs to be clarified, or they've said something that I just need to respond to. But a good part of the interviews are, like I said, exactly what I would do when I was interviewing as an agent. And that is let them talk and me sit down and just gather the information.
Sergeant Joe Jackalone says, "Great advice, Jerri."
Hey,
So,
Joe. I worked for many, many years with Joe's brother, and they look exactly alike, a little different in height, which he'll admit. But as soon as I saw him, of course, the name gave me an indication too. But as soon as I saw him, I'm like, I know your brother. I worked with your brother. So
that's so
that's pretty
cool.
cool. Thanks, Joe.
Okay, well, when we first started this series, sorry, I'm a little hoarse today. When we first started this series, I really wanted to focus on what about being a woman, has affected you in your career. And you kind of already touched on a couple of those things. But for you, like you said, you had to check off two boxes. And so you had to navigate systems with misogyny and racism in them. And what was that like? What is it like?
Yeah. Well, I think, what was it like? Because I can tell you that when I first came in to the FBI, it was difficult, and I did have some challenges. And the at the end of my or the middle of my fourth year, I wanted to quit. I mean, I actually, looked at other jobs that I might be able to get, because I just felt like I was beating my head against a wall. I was, things had been said and done, and treatment and dismissive, that I had just gotten to a point where they broke me. I was broken, not by the institution, but by individuals, especially some supervisors that I just couldn't see, you know, that I was going to get ahead. I was looking at other people and thinking, like, this is, maybe I'm not right for this. Maybe this is not the job for me. And then in that fourth year, two things happened. My classmate Jerry Dove was killed in the Miami shootout, and the head of the office at the time was Wayne Davis, one of the first Black special agent in charge. And he came to me and asked me to step away from investigations, still as an agent, but to start manage their hiring program. And I thought, well, here's somebody. I couldn't believe he asked me, because here's somebody that I feel like this might not be the right job for me. And you want me to go out and recruit other people for this job? But when Jerry Dove was killed in the Miami shootout, I did feel like, he wasn't going to have a chance. That was devastating for me. And I had spoken to him several times after our class graduated. He was in San Diego. My first office was in Sacramento. We met for drinks when I was in San Diego, and we talked on the phone when he went to Miami a little bit. But it was devastating for me because, you know, I saw the news reports and would see his body draped over with a sheet. It was just devastating. And I thought to myself, he doesn't get to do this job anymore. He has made the ultimate sacrifice. I can't quit. And then, like I said, shortly, a few months later, that's when the SAC came to me. So I started that hiring program, going out and recruiting agents and working with headquarters to get their applications through. And I recruited myself. I started to really see, where that I belonged, that I deserved to, lead investigations and do the same things that others were doing, and all the potential that was in the special agent position. And when I finished my stint as they called it applicant coordinator, but hiring manager, I went back to investigations, and, as the title of this series says, I rocked. You know, I just had a fire under me, and became one of the highest producing agents on the economic crime squad. I had a 350 million dollar Ponzi scheme that made it onto American Greed. I had a one of the biggest cases on the squad, which was a business to business telemarketing squad case, where I had at the end, 27 convictions and people that went to jail. And it was just amazing. I just really learned my value, in the FBI, and I just took it to the next level. So
Wow.
sticking it, being persistent, being consistent, knowing that I had value, and being confident. And I love to tell people my definition of confidence, and that is not knowing everything, but knowing that you can figure it out. You know, I'm in a situation, it's a brand new case. I don't know what's going on here, but feeling very confident. That's okay. I know I can figure this out. That's what confidence is, and I gained that, and you couldn't stop me after that.
That is so amazing. What a great story. Wow. Well,
I'm writing
speak.
that down.
Uh, Babe is writing it down. So, I mean, speaking of having that confidence of not knowing everything, and kind of knowing that you're going to get there. What about writing books? What made you want to start writing books? What got you into that?
Well, I was a big reader. Again, growing up, moving a lot, when I didn't have friends, when I was someplace new, books were my friends. I mean, my parents were big readers. My mother loved to read, and she passed that on to my sisters and I. And so I was always a big reader. And of course, once I became an agent, I started gravitating to books about crime fiction, and I just thought to myself, I can do this. One day I want to write a book. And it was the last year that I was in the FBI that I started the book. And both of my books are inspired by true crime cases that happened in Philadelphia. That $350 million Ponzi scheme is the inspiration for my book, Greedy Givers. And the pay to play is inspired by two very attractive female FBI agent friends of mine who worked a corruption case that was focused on the strip club industry in Philadelphia. And so I wrote a book about that. And so, yeah, I just love crime fiction. I still read crime fiction. And I just finished reading last week the new John Grisham book, The Exchange, which is the sequel to The Firm. And yeah, so I just decided I want to start write crime novels too.
And
So
what about FBI myths and misconceptions? By the way, I just put in the both chats on Kick and YouTube the link from from Jerri's website. But you can get these books on Amazon or anywhere you can get books, right,
Barnes and
Jerri?
Noble, yeah, wherever books are sold. They're audio books, paperbacks, hardbacks, and I said audiobooks,
Yes.
ebooks, paperback. Yeah, yeah, they're out there, and more coming.
And so, yeah, what made you want to write this book right here?
That book is really based on the podcast. And so when I was doing podcast interviews, a lot of times myself and my guest would say, yeah, that's not how it is in TV, or you never see this thing in a movie or a TV show, and we just would laugh. And I'd then develop 20 cliches about the FBI that you find in books, TV, and movies. And one day I was talking to an entertainment lawyer, and he was saying, like, why isn't this a book? And I had never thought about that. And so I wrote the book. So the book has all the 20 cliches that I came up with, and it is interspersed with the reality, which is either quotes from agents that I've interviewed on the podcast, or excerpts from the FBI's website, to really clearly give people an understanding of what the myth or cliche is and what the truth is. And so that was a fun book to write, and I got to go to the same recording studio that Lisa Scottolini, a famous Philadelphia crime
Yes.
novelist, went to record the audiobook for that. So that was a lot of fun.
Well, babe,
And Lisa blurbed it, matter of fact.
Ah, yes.
Yes.
Before you get to your question, babe, get it ready because I think this is a perfect time. We're talking about the book. So I promised people we were going to do a little contest here, folks, for this signed copy
Yes.
of the book, folks. Type in JERRI in the chat, whether you're on YouTube or Kick, type it in there. Also, folks, there are going to be some stickers in there. We got this one. We got this one. And we got this one. And by the way, folks, while I'm here, I want to let you know, if you go on Jerri's site and you can get swag, folks. You can get these stickers yourself.
The cutest stuff.
It is awesome. If you go here, if you click right here on the bottom, that's how you get it. Also, that's where the Buy Me a Coffee is. That's where you can know all the information is on the website. So make sure you're going to jerriwilliams.com. Get her some coffee. Go ahead, babe.
Before you give this book away, that I have to say is that I started reading it, and I love that. I mean, I probably wouldn't pick up normally a book about the FBI, just in general. I do like crime fiction, but it's so funny. Like, you have such a great sense of humor, and it's so great. It's like, as soon as you start talking about, like, a TV show like Clarice, or the Clarice Starling part, I'm like, oh gosh, here it's coming up now. I'm going to find out all the things that are wrong about every thing that I've ever watched, but you guys will love it. It's so funny. It's down to earth. It's so accessible. I love it.
Thank you, Shannon.
You're welcome.
All right, folks. So we got the participants in there. Here we go, folks.
Good luck.
Dr. Artie. Dr. Artie, the big winner. Dr. Artie, email me at theshamingofjay@gmail.com with your address, and I will get this book out to you tomorrow. Congratulations, everyone. Thank you for entering the contest. And Dr. Artie is the big winner. Way to go, Dr. Artie. Awesome. All right, so babe, that's that little interruption in the interview there. And now, go ahead, babe.
Um,
Congratulations.
okay, what? Oh, we were moving on from books. So you began podcasting before writing books or
I
before writing
began
nonfiction?
I began podcasting before my first book came out. My first book came out in September of 2016, and my literary agent had suggested that I start building a platform before it came out. And at the time, this is in 2016, podcast people were podcasting, of course. They were becoming more and more popular, but a lot of writers were blogging. And I thought, well, I don't want to write blogs, I want to write books. And so it just came to me to do a podcast. And because I knew so many agents, I thought, well, I will do a podcast where I interview retired agents, but not necessarily about their careers, because for me, that would get redundant. It would be always interesting for listeners, but for me, I would get, you know, tired of hearing about somebody, going to Quantico and, what they had to do there. And so I decided to focus on one single case where we would review a case. And so that started in January and, allowed me to build an audience and build potential readers for the book when it came out in September. So that's why I got started. And then the podcast took off and the writing has kind of been placed on the back shelf. And I'm probably known more as a podcaster than I am as a author.
So I want to just highlight some comments here that I've been saving while we've been doing this. CH says, when you meet someone and they automatically put a smile on your face, that's Jerri.
Oh,
Uh,
thank you.
Lauren, again, your biggest fan, says, go listen to episode 300 of Jerri's Pod featuring FBI Director Chris Ray. Amazing interview. We're going to get to that. CH also asks, who is your favorite crime writer, Jerri?
I would say, oh boy, I do like Dennis Lehane. That's why I'm going to go. Michael Connolly, and definitely John Grisham. He has one of my favorite books. I always get it wrong. I think it's called The Testament, but it is a
Okay.
fantastic book. Yeah, have you read it? It's about the
Yes.
lawyer who's an alcoholic, and he has to go to the Amazon to get a missionary who's had an inheritance of millions of dollars. Yeah, it
Yes.
is so good. So good, so good. Yeah, so those are my favorite, but I read everyone, even the new people that are out today. A good friend of mine, Wanda Morris, has two books that are out, and she is really doing extremely, extremely well. So I had to mention her too.
You might
Okay, I'm
want to
going to check her out.
come
Yeah.
to the Hamptons who done it with us. There's a lot of it's a festival in the Hamptons. Babe, do you know some of the authors? I'm not good with it. Who are
Yes.
the
Well, Ruth Ware is the big author that will be in the Hamptons, and then AJ Finn, who wrote Woman in the Window,
Mm.
Brad Thor, oh goodness,
Alafair Burke,
Alistair Burke. Yes,
S.A.
Yeah.
Cosby, Ashley Flowers.
Yeah,
yes,
I know S.A. Cosby, his books are great too. I've
yes,
met him a couple of times
yes.
at Thriller Fest, yeah.
So maybe you could do something with your books there. We happen to know the
Yeah.
Joe is on the board, so it might be a place to get your books out there. Just an
Yes,
idea.
we
Okay,
got to
all
get
right.
yours and Wanda's books there.
Okay, excellent. I think Wanda was there last year. I'm pretty sure she was.
Oh, that's amazing.
Yeah, yeah.
So speaking of the sorry, a little non sequitur there, but speaking of the podcast, what would you say are some of your favorite episodes that you've done so far of the podcast?
I thought you might ask this question, so I have written it down. I actually tell people when they ask what's your favorite one, I say, well, it's not necessarily my favorite one, but the one podcast episode that I did that made me realize that it was more than just a true crime podcast, that this was a mission, was it was a two-parter, uh, 57 and 58, with Eddie Fryer, and it was on the Polly class abduction. Now, Eddie Fryer was the case agent. And as he's telling this story, as he's going through, what it was like to work for over 60 days without a single day off trying to find Polly, he really takes you back, and he takes you to one particular day where he's in a conference room by himself in the middle of having a nervous breakdown, just having a panic attack because he's feeling the pressure of the parents, he's feeling the pressure of his bosses, he's feeling the pressure of the nation because this was a national level case. I was the 12-year-old who was abducted out of her bedroom during it while she was having a sleepover. And so when he's telling the story and he's crying and I'm crying, then I realize this is such a special episode because if other law enforcement people are listening, they hear his message of taking care of yourself while you're trying to work on these investigations. And so 57 and 58, which I just re released as part of the 300th episode, I re edited it because at the beginning my audio was not perfect. And so I re edited it and I made it into one super long, I think it's like 100 and I mean, it's like an hour and 42 minutes, one episode. And so that is one of the most important. I try not to have favorites, but there are two others that I really, really enjoy listening to. And that was the other one was another two-parter. It was episode 148 and 149, and it is on the informant. It's called The Informant, and The Informant was a book and a movie. The book was a very serious nonfiction, a narrative nonfiction book by Kurt Eichenwald, Wall Street uh, Times or Wall Street, was he New York Times? I can't remember, but he was a big time reporter, and he wrote this book, and then they made it into a movie that was almost a comedy starring oh, it just went right out of my head, Matt Damon,
Amen. Yeah.
and but the book is one of my favorite narrative nonfiction books, and I had the case agent on talking about that case. It is so good. It really, really is. And then there was one other that I really hope that somebody will make a movie or a podcast series about, and it is episode 179 with Scott Duffy. And Scott investigated, he had heard this rumor, and I don't know how he overheard it, but some people were talking about how when they went to their prom, two of the schoolmates had come and they had tattoos on their elbows of a spider web, and it was supposed to be a skinhead tattoo that indicated that they had killed someone, that they had killed a black person. And they told the story at their prom, and then nobody ever did anything with it. And now he's hearing this story 20 years later, and he thought, well, let me just see if I can find, if this was true. And so he goes and starts doing interviews, and they tell them the date and that they had just gotten the tattoos. And so the person who they allegedly killed would have been killed maybe the week before. And it was in supposed to the kill there in Wilmington. The killing was supposed to occur in Philadelphia. So he went to Philadelphia and was working with the Philadelphia Police Department and found an unsolved murder of a black male who had been shot on the street. This person had no connection to law enforcement, and it had been unsolved. So now he thinks he actually has the person, and he and a Wilmington police detective that he was working with got in a car and rode from Wilmington to, it was either Massachusetts or Maine, and did a cold call on one of the people that had been responsible for this killing and got the guy to talk. And both him and the other person were eventually convicted for this murder. It is such an exciting and riveting and emotional. investigation and case review because he didn't have to do this case. I mean, all he had was this rumor that somebody heard from somebody else, and he just decided that he was going to solve this 20-year unsolved murder. So, of racially motivated murder that had never been solved, and the man's family never knew why he was killed or what happened. It really, yeah, goosebumps. Absolutely, goosebumps. And so that's episode 179. So that's one of my favorites too. But they're all my favorites.
Isn't correct me if I'm wrong? Isn't Scott Duffy? Doesn't he go on Surviving the Survivor all the time? That's the
Yes,
same page.
yes. Yeah. And Scott has actually been on another time. He did a case review of a bank robber who ended up he was investigating this guy for bank robbery and then realized that the guy's mother was missing, and it ended up that the guy had murdered his mother also. And so Scott has some great cases, but yeah, that's the same Scott Duffy. Yeah.
Very cool. Actually, I wanted a couple more comments. Joe says I could listen to her for hours.
Oh, thanks,
Uh,
Joe.
Art with Viv, the Vivster says I love Jerry's voice. It's so calming to me.
Thank
And
you.
our mod Elizabeth L says I could listen to Jerry talk forever, and I think we all agree with that. To be honest with you, um, was
You
it
know
me,
why?
babe?
Because I love what I do. I love sharing stories, writing stories, sharing stories, reading stories. I'm really motivated by storytelling.
Go ahead, babe. I think it's you.
Yeah, it's your energy and your passion for it is contagious. So when we're watching you, we are bubbling up inside too. It makes us feel alive. Um, oh, we have to ask you about episode 300.
Yes.
You
Yeah.
had the FBI director.
Let me tell you, I swung for the fences. I thought, why not? Why not contact FBI headquarters and request that he be the guest of my 300th episode? Now, let me tell you this, because this is going to make it even more uh, amazing. If you look him up, he has never been on a podcast before. I don't
Wow.
count the fact that he's on an NPR podcast or a Fox News as a
Right.
podcast, because really what they've taken is an interview that he's done on a national news network and they converted it into a podcast. He has not been on a podcast, but I asked him to be on mine and they said yes. And anybody who has had the opportunity to listen, I asked hard questions. And
Yes.
if he answered and he kind of gave me, a typical answer, I asked it again.
Yes.
I really was very confident and comfortable in speaking with him. I had met him once before. He was a dinner companion. That really sounds like we're best friends, but really, I had gotten an award from the FBI Agents Association, and the award came with a big fancy gala at the Four Seasons in Washington D.C., and also the opportunity to sit at the table with Director Ray. So he knew of me. He knew I had won this award, which is from the Active Agents Association.
Yeah,
And,
the distinguished service honoree, right? I mean, that's a big
yes,
deal.
yeah, it was a big deal. And so he had met me, and we had sat at the table, and I had told him about the podcast and actually showed him how to bring up podcast on his phone. And so I guess when the request came in, they also knew that I'd been doing this podcast for over 8 years and had done stories that were positive, that portrayed a positive perception of the FBI. And I think they felt comfortable in having him on the show. So it was a unbelievable honor. I was actually invited to go to FBI headquarters to conduct the interview, but I have a responsibility of taking care of my grandkids, and we had just gone through a little tragedy in the family, somebody passing, and so I didn't go in person, but I was able to do that interview. He was relaxed, he was comfortable, he was open, he was honest, and it's one of my biggest and proudest moments outside of getting the actual award. Having him on the podcast was right up there with that.
It was amazing. And yes, I was going to say that. I'm glad you said you didn't. It wasn't like a Jerry wasn't just lobbing up the softball, folks. She was, and if she didn't like the answer, she hit it again. It was amazing, and he was like so super knowledgeable. He talks about going to 56 locations twice. He's going to do it 3 times. He was just had so much information. It blew me away, the interview. So swinging for the fences, you sure did, and it was just
And then
absolutely
I had
beautiful.
a little icing on that cake because the next day the Washington Post picked it up and they did an article in the Washington Post about me interviewing Director Ray on my podcast. So it was like that. This was all last week. This all happened last week. It was wild. It was really a highlight, a magic moment in my podcasting journey.
Guys, just think about it. She's had 300 episodes, over 10 million downloads. I mean, and that's just a little bit of all the things that Jerry has done to make her a woman who rocks. So like, just blown away. Just amazing. Make sure you're checking out the podcast and giving it 5 stars. We're not done yet. I'm just saying, make sure you're checking out the podcast and giving it 5 stars. We say it all the time. We don't know how it works, but somehow it works with the algorithm. It gets it out there. So make sure you're doing it. It's all on the website that we've been sharing. So make sure to check that out. So Jerry, what I want to ask you, speaking about podcasts, and we talked about this a little bit before we came on, but you were on Podcast Row at CrimeCon. I'm just curious what your experience has been like. You said, your podcast is true crime, but it's news. What has it been kind of like becoming part of the true crime community, or you know, meeting all these folks and getting in the community?
The thing about going to CrimeCon, it was really my first time going to a conference that was focused on the crime on the true crime community. Now I've gone to podcast conferences, like Podcast Movement and Podfest, but this was a conference for true crime advocates and fans, and I didn't understand where I was going. I had my swag to give away and I had my banner. And just like maybe a few weeks before I went, I started getting emails from the families of victims because for them, what is important is getting the message out about their loved ones, especially in cases that are unsolved. They're looking for podcasters who are going to share their story. Our cases that have been solved, but they just want to keep the memory of their loved ones alive. And so I started getting emails from people, can I put a flyer at your table? Can I, or would you be interested in, doing an episode about this particular case? And so I started to see, oh, wait a minute, this is more than true crime fans getting together. And then when you get there and they come to you and you meet them and you hear their story on the stage. I only went to one actual seminar, and that's when it was called the um, missing white girl syndrome, and it was with the parents of Gabby Petito and the parents of Daniel. Oh, I'm sorry. I hate to mess up people's names when it's
Robinson?
so. Yes, Robinson. And then it was also a mother whose son was a farmer. Do you know who I'm talking about? Oh, I wish I had written their names down, but I went to see them because I met all of them. I had actually talked to Mr. Robinson like a year or two and a half before because I do fully adjudicated cases, and so I couldn't help him, but I was trying to help him find other people and other shows that could help get his story out. But in talking with them and meeting with them, at CrimeCon, there's like it's the strangest. It is a wonderful conference. I don't want anybody to misunderstand me, but it's a strange situation for somebody in law enforcement. And if Joe, if you're still there, I know you'll agree, because it is a wonderful place where you meet lots of wonderful people and you're having a good time, but there's also this undercurrent of sadness, because we are telling stories about people who are no longer with us, stories of pain and misery and hurt. And sometimes I think we forget that. And when you're standing in front of a loved one whose son or daughter or sister or father or husband or brother have been killed, it really makes you step back and say, wow, this industry has a lot of responsibility to make sure they get things right, that they cover these stories with compassion and respect. And so it really took me back to my days of investigating and talking to witnesses and victims. And it brought me immediately, back to those moments as I engaged with these individuals. It was it was just a wonderful, and I know I'm not making it sound wonderful, but it really was just a wonderful event to see the good work that the true crime industry is doing in telling these stories and helping these families find justice and closure, if there's such a thing as closure.
Well, Daisy just put in here our mod. We had Julie Murray, whose sister is missing, and she preaches engage with empathy and kind of what you're talking about. You got to center the victim, avoid harmful speculation, research facts responsibly, and engage with empathy. So we're really trying to think about that and promote that on
Right.
our show. And you bring up just an excellent point for everyone to kind of think about. That was really special. Babe, did you have anything else or what?
Well, now my mind is reeling because you also are taking care of grandkids during the day. So I'm just like,
Tuesdays, Thursday, and every other Friday. So that's why I moved. I lived for almost 40 years outside of Philadelphia and South Jersey, and when my daughter moved to Raleigh and started having babies, I was like, I worked, as a mother. I was, you know, working outside the home and trying to take care of my kids. My husband picked up a lot of the slack. He was a high school teacher. And I just thought, if I can have a do over, I don't think I was a bad mother, but if I could have a do over as a grandmother, that I wanted that opportunity. So we moved in the middle of COVID in 2020 to Raleigh, North Carolina. And so, yeah, I will be up at 7:30 or at my daughter's house at 7:30 tomorrow morning, picking up the grandson, bringing him back here. The other one is in kindergarten now, but it is a big part of my life. But yeah, trying to still do the podcast and the books and the
yeah,
blogs and all of that. And potty train. We're in the middle of potty training now. Is a lot, but I would not trade that for anything. I'm a good grandmother. My grandma name is Gigi, so
I
I'm a good
love it.
Gigi. Yeah.
I can't believe it's already been an hour, and I mean, we could have gone just talking about your FBI career. We could have done a show just on that alone, or your podcast. I mean, just amazing. You're blowing us away, and I see it in the chat. Everyone is just blown away. Just absolutely
I
amazing.
gotta say something else, because this is so many unbelievable things have happened for me since I started podcasting. And another thing that happened for me that a lot of people don't know about is I have become a consultant, for a TV show that will be coming out in the near future, that just happens to be produced by J.J. Abrams. So
Oh,
Holy
whoa!
bananas.
yes. Yes, and Latoya Morgan is the showrunner, and Latoya Morgan has done many, many great shows, But the big boss is J.J. Abrams, and so I get to Zoom with J.J. Abrams, and I look at my email, and there's an email from J.J. I've been able to read the scripts for the episodes, and it's been unbelievable, and that happened because of the podcast. So
Wow.
too cool.
Wow. So we're
Too
going to
cool.
see it whenever that comes out. We're going to see the credits, and we're going to see
Yep, yep, yep,
special
yep,
consultant Jerry
yep.
Williams. How
It will
freaking
be right
cool is
there.
that?
It's called Duster, and it is going to be on Max, which of course was HBO. But because of the writer's strike and the actor's strike, I have no idea now when they had started filming. They had to stop. So I have no idea when this is coming out. I take it sometime next year now. But yeah, yeah, I'm supposed to get a little credit there, so I'm having fun, and I'll be the FBI consultant on that show until it's canceled. So let's hope it's on like Lost, that it continues for
Yes.
many, many seasons to come.
Well, guys, when you watch that show and you watch the FBI stuff, you're just going to be like, this is right. I know this is
Yep.
right because Jerry was the consultant. So this would not have flown. So now you can
Mm.
watch that show and know that.
Well, I had to say, because I've also consulted on a recent show that was on Hulu called The Class of '09, which I really, really liked. But as a consultant, you provide the information, you tell them how it would work in real life. They do,
Okay.
what they
So,
think is right. They do what they think is right for the story. And that's very important. That's very
right.
important.
Uh, Amazing. It's been an hour. I don't want to keep you late. You got to get up early tomorrow with your
Mhm.
grandson. So what I do want to say is, and this is how I've been ending these episodes. We're new to this game, Jerry. I started this channel about seven months ago. Was it 8 months now? But anyway, we're new to the game, but we have a really loyal group of folks called J-Bo Nation. It's just we learned during the Murdoch trial that a Bo in South Carolina is like your friend. They say, "Hey, Bo, how are you? Hey, Bo." So we kind of adopted that, and we call ourselves Bows. We're friends. So you now are officially in J-Bo Nation.
Yay!
You're gonna see it on Twitter. You're gonna see it on wherever you are. We are gonna have your back because for you to spend your time here with us, we really super appreciate it. You blew our minds. I mean, I'm just
Thank you.
I don't even, babe. I don't even know what to say, babe. Do you have any?
No, I wrote down so much stuff. I have all the podcast things. I have a few of your quotes now. So I just feel so happy that we had you.
Well, you guys are energizing because you know that I told you before we went live that I was tired. It's been a long day. And look, I'm all energized now. I think I might go run around the block or something.
Well, that's amazing. Well, guys, listen to the podcast. Give it 5 stars. Check out the website. Like I said, you could buy coffee. You can get these stickers or get the books. Get the swag. Get the coffee. Do it all, folks. I think that's it. Any final words, Jerry, or anything else you want to say to the folks, or are we good?
Just thank you for having me. This has been so much fun. You two rock. How's that?
Thank you. Wow,
Thank
that
you.
means a lot. You rock, Jerry. But
You rock.
that's it, folks. So have a good night, everyone, and thank you so much, Jerry. We really
All
really
right.
appreciate it.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye-bye.
Thank you for joining us, J-Bo Nation. Please give all of yourselves an ovation. No, it won't be real long until next time. Oh, J-Bo Nation, there's no place we'd rather be. J-Bo Nation is the place to 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 be.